everyone. Welcome to our community forum this morning. I'm Greg Sears, Superintendent at Kings. Appreciative of those of you that have braved the weather to be here this morning and engage into this work with us, and to those of you that are viewing live now or going to be on delay later. So we appreciate you answering the call to join us this morning to provide feedback on where we are in our master planning process. This process has been ongoing for quite a few months as we've analyzed our capacities in our buildings and also the future direction on how we solve some of those things. We're fortunate this morning that this community forum is going to be primarily led by our architectural firm, SHP. I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Janigan and Jeff Parker this morning, and they're going to take you through a lot of the information, the process, where they've been, where our community is engaged, a lot of data, and then kind of the next steps moving forward and where we need your input and help. So thanks again for joining here personally and also for viewing online. But at this time, I'll turn it over to Charlie Janigan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sears. Thanks everybody for coming out. We're targeting about 30 minutes or so for the full presentation. And at the end will be a survey that we would like you to take either here today or over the weekend. As Mr. Sears mentioned, my name is Charlie Janigan. I'm an architect with the company SHP. I'm one of the owners of the company. I primarily have designed schools and done community engagement for my whole career, which next year will be 24 years with the same company. To my left is Jeff Parker.
I'm Jeff Parker. I'm an architect with SHP as well. Been doing it long enough to know better. So I'm really happy to be with you this morning.
All right. So what we're going to do is review the process and the things we've done to date with the district and with some other consultants that have been a part of this journey. And then I'm going to pass the mic to Jeff, and he's going to share some of the options of how we've whittled the plan down. Overall, we are trying to create a master plan. That is what we've been tasked with. A master plan in our eyes is something that is educationally fantastic, financially responsible, and community developed and supported. And again, that's why we are having a forum like this. This is our second one, and we thank you guys for coming out on a Saturday morning. Our process has been ongoing since September. We formulated something called a community advisory team. And so we have met a couple times with that group. This is a diverse group of parents, some staff, some folks with kids not in the school anymore, and they've helped kind of establish some of the parameters. We've had some really in-depth meetings with that group over the past few weeks. We've also done targeted stakeholder outreach. And so through this period, we've been exploring these options with various groups. We've met with some performing arts groups. We've met with sports groups. We've met with various schools. We had an HOA meeting. And so we've been trying to be very focused on some of the concerns that community members may have. We are right here with our second forum, which we are live streaming this, and we will have a survey open until Halloween. Ultimately, we are leading to a recommendation to the board in a few weeks. That recommendation will be coming from the community advisory team, parents and members who are part of that group. This may be a little bit hard to read, but we've been at it, and we've been very strategic in how we've unfolded the process. And as I mentioned, we're leading to a recommendation, a presentation to the Board of Education on the 7th, which is 2 weeks. So this started with enrollment, and that's really the crux of the issue. Enrollment here has increased based off what the buildings can hold. This is a graphic that has been shared with the community since about back to school time in August. So this may look familiar. And in the summary is that 5 of the 6 primary buildings are currently over 105% capacity. So the district has had to do some creative things to be able to fit the quantity of kids within the school buildings. Kings High School is operating at 134% of its capacity. There are folks all over. In fact, right now presenting, we had to ask the band to pause their drum practice because you could hear them when I was up here. So there's been a lot of hurdles that the district has had integrate in order to accommodate all the folks in and out of the buildings. This has also been quantified by a group called Cropper GIS. This is a company who the district worked with in the spring. The company walked all the buildings and they explored all the enrollment and looked at projections. Right now we're just shy of about 5,000, and that number is going to continue to increase. And so this 134% that you saw at the high school is not going down. It's only going to get worse. And that's the crux of why we are here today. If you'd like to see more of this also, and Mr. Cropper's presentations are on the district's YouTube from the spring Board of Education meetings. The other thing that we've been looking at is just operating and maintenance costs of buildings. As you know, this district has a variety of some, I'll call newer buildings from 2000s, 97, but then there's also a large stock of buildings from that the KEC was built in 1927 that require a little more maintenance. JF Burns from 1966. There's a lot of dollars budgeted to keep those buildings open and maintained. Some larger expenses are coming down the line, and that's something that we need to be cognizant of. So we started with the CAT team. We started with some high-level discussions and plans, and we went to market with a first survey. And maybe some of you folks here today were participants of that. We were able to get 582 folks to completely fill out the survey, which was exceeded our expectation. We were looking for about 400. And we had, so this is some demographic data. Overall, it was the demographic data reflects, a lot of what you would typically see, parents and staff kind of in that 30 to 64 range. We did make a big push for folks who were over 65, and we did get about 9% turnout. So that was a strong number. Relationships, you can see we had a handful of parents, a handful of staff members, but then we had students and community members, folks with kids not in the schools. And that's, again, we know they pay taxes, and we wanted to solicit feedback from them. As far as living in the district, a real nice bell curve. You can see right here, this is less than 1 year, and over here is over 20 years. And so the respondents to the survey was a nice cross-section of the community and folks who've lived here for the various ranges. As far as zip codes, you know that this district represents a variety of zip codes. We were making sure to get the zip codes in the proper percentages to respond. This chart here really shows that we did get a nice cross section. And so 45039 is about 39% of the community, and 37% of the respondents were from there. So we were seeing alignment. Down here, 45140. It's about 26% of the community. We got 21% of the respondents. So again, the respondents on survey one was a real nice reflection of the community. From there, we talked about community values with the CAT team, and the CAT team helped define things of what are important here. So we asked, when I think about our schools and their relationship with the community, these things should be most important. So on the survey, we actually had 11 options as defined by the community. And the top 5 were commitment to academic excellence, spaces that are safe and welcoming, supporting staff, innovative education, and fiscal responsibility. And so as we move forward, we want to take those 5 values and make sure that we discuss those and that we're holding true to those values that the community seems important. There are other ones that are on here: trust, transparency. We're still going to do a lot of these things, neighborhood schools, but it was having the community gauge those is a great reflection of the desires. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Mr. Parker, and he's going to discuss kind of the master planning process. And
great. Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for coming out. We appreciate your time this morning on a beautiful Saturday morning. As Charlie mentioned, we formed a community advisory team made up of your neighbors. That group is about 40 people, and we've met so far twice with them. Not only did we ask them about what's important to the community from a value standpoint, but we asked for their help to begin to put solutions on the table, right? We didn't start this process with a plan in place. We didn't have a vision of what the district wanted it to be, and we're trying to feed that to the group. We didn't present any solutions to them. We just asked we gave them the data about enrollment, and we asked, how would you as a community member solve this problem? When we left that meeting, we had roughly 16 unique solutions, right? So we walked out with about almost 30 different sketches of ideas. Those kind of boiled down to these 16. You'll see that 5 of them have kind of a thumbs down. We gave the district the opportunity to evaluate these solutions from a operational standpoint. What does it take to actually get it done? From a teaching and learning standpoint, what are the impacts on the students and on the teachers and on the classroom? And finally, from a cost standpoint, if it's just too expensive. So when we look at these 16 in light of those 3 factors, these 5 began to fall off. If you have questions about these or want to know more about them, we presented these at the forum, and this also is available on the district's YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and see kind of what those solutions look like, that would be a great way to do that. All right, so we took those remaining 11 solutions and pushed them out into a community-wide survey. Would you raise your hand if you participated in that survey? Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we appreciate it. And we asked the question of each of those 11. So thank you for taking that onerous survey. We asked the question, how appropriate is each for the King's community, right? And neutral is kind of in the middle. Neutral is in the middle. So we wanted to focus on solutions that gauged neutral and stronger, right? So that being said, these 5 solutions kind of rose to the top. Okay, so there was one solution which we call the addition solution. And we'll walk through these in more detail in a moment. We had a pair of solutions that featured new middle schools, and we had a pair of solutions that featured new high schools. And you can kind of see here their scores relative to each other. Those were the top 5 ranked based on that community survey. Okay. So with those 5 in hand, we went back to the community advisory team and we asked them, what are your thoughts on these 5, right? How do they stand up for you? So we polled the community advisory team, and you can see this. So the first one is the all additions option. The next 2 were the new middle school solutions, and the last 2 were the new high school solutions. And you can see that in regard to that group, there was a lot of interest in the new high school solutions. Least amount of interest in the all additions and moderate interest in the middle school solutions. So we wanted to dig into that a little bit further. We asked, of the 2 high school solutions, which do you prefer? Now these are unique. There's just a few variables that begin to change based upon these solutions. You can see that both of them feature a new high school that would be on this campus. They both feature moving the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders into our current high school. Okay, so that's where they are alike. Where they begin to differ is, what do we do with K through 5th grade? Okay, so the top one here, we're taking the 4th and 5th graders and moving them into Columbia. So currently Columbia is 5th and 6th grade. We're going to shift that down a grade, and we're going to expand it a little bit to provide additional space. That's what the red block is here on Columbia. With the other solution, we're actually taking the 4th and 5th grade and putting them into our current King's Junior High School. Okay, so we would have 4th through 12th grade on this campus. So that's the kind of variation between these. And we're going to ask you to give us a little more insight into what makes sense from where you sit. We also asked rate the middle school options. Do you like middle school 1, middle school 5, or would you just rather have a high school? And this bottom bar is the percentage of the group that says, we really just think that a new high school is the right answer. We don't need to be distracted by this middle school conversation any longer. So that's where we landed with the community advisory team. So the other thing that we asked the district to do was we wanted them to speak into these solutions from a teaching and learning and an operational standpoint, right? I'm an architect. I know architecture. I don't know what it takes to make a good classroom. I don't understand the nuances of busing in a district, right? And I suspect you all are really good at your jobs, but you're less knowledgeable on the impact of busing or on what a teacher needs in a classroom. So that's why we invited the district to speak into each of these. So I'm just going to roll through really quick some of the pros, and I'm going to focus on the pros. The all additions is that it really keeps things how they are. It just kind of expands everywhere where we need additional capacity. All right. Keeps staffing the same. It keeps administration the same. It's all the same basically as what we do. I will say though that it does create a degree of disruption district-wide. From a teaching and learning standpoint, it keeps all the grades exactly the same as they are today. It would also reduce the number of traveling teachers. The new high school with an addition at Columbia, very little disruption during construction. It creates a lot of operational efficiencies across the district. From a teaching and learning standpoint, having the 6th through 8th grade on the campus with the high school really creates a lot of opportunities for those students. It also updates the high school to what we would refer to as a 21st century learning environment. The last option, high school 6, again, K3 is similar, but so this moves all K3s into our newer elementary schools, Columbia, Kings Mills, and South Lebanon. Transportation efficiencies, there are no disruptions district-wide. So we could build a new high school, leave everyone where they are during that process, occupy the new high school, then make adjustments. So there's no kind of piecemeal construction perspective. From a teaching and learning standpoint, again, the updated high school, having 4th through 12th grade on the same campus creates a lot of academic benefits. So there we go. Those are the high points from a teaching and learning and operational standpoint. So today we wanted to tease out those options a little more and talk to you further about them. So this is the additions option. You can see here it creates a large addition at the high school. Charlie mentioned earlier that, pardon me, that the high school currently is at 34% over capacity. Okay, and that's based on the Cropper enrollment and capacity studies that were done last year. If we take our 7th graders and advance them to their senior year, that building, the high school, becomes 44% over capacity. Okay, so that's just the kids we have today, irrespective of any projected growth. All right. It also creates an addition at Kings Junior High, an addition at Columbia, additions at Burns, and additions at South Lebanon. Kings Mills has enough capacity right now, and KEC has enough room right now as well. So 5 additions across the district, and this one totals $114 million. Okay. These are kind of the high points as I've talked through them. Classroom additions across the district. Kings High School, we would add classroom space, add dining space. We would add a competition gymnasium to address crowding in that space. and we would add an auditorium that would accommodate two full classes of students and their staff at one time. One thing to point out, there is a premium to do additions to existing facilities. So we would anticipate a 25% premium on top of the regular cost per square foot to add on to these facilities. All right. So it's just not as efficient as starting over, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So again, $114 million for this option. All right. So the new high school option. As you recall, there were kind of two high school options that varied in a couple of little nuanced ways. So we're really trying to tease those out here. So again, we start with a new high school on this campus for 9th through 12th graders, right? Then we would convert our existing high school into a 6th through 8th grade middle school building. And then that creates some variability in how we meet the needs of preschool through 5th grade. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. We're going to ask you more about that in the survey. But this solution, regardless of what the answer is, 5th grade and below, comes in at $142 million. Okay. So we went from 114 to 142. Charlie, I think that's 28. Yep. So what does that include? What do we get with the new high school? So you get future ready academic spaces, new media spaces. That's what we used to think of as the library, dining spaces, athletic spaces, fine arts spaces. So all that, it's kind of a turnkey new high school project, right? It's all in there. Other building impacts is it allows us to right size the elementaries. So the elementaries become K to 3. So right now, all the elementaries are K to 4. So what it does by bleeding out those students, it reduces the load in each of those buildings, which helps get them to a livable capacity in those elementary schools. And then there are other district-wide improvements that would be made at some of our older facilities as needed. Okay. All right. So you might remember that depending on which solution we head to in this new high school option, it could do some things with our existing buildings, likely our older buildings. You remember Charlie had that slide up about the operational costs, and it's really no surprise that the older buildings cost a lot more to operate and maintain. Okay. So by adding a new building, by adding a new high school, it creates kind of a surplus of space that we really don't need any longer from an instructional standpoint. So it's not currently needed instructional space. What could we use that for? What could we use that extra space for? We could use it to generate revenue. We could offset district expenditures with that space. We could reduce operating costs. We could even sell or lease that space. And there's no conversations going on anywhere about any of these options because we just aren't there yet. But it could be sold to another community school, another government entity, or even a private sale. So, but again, there's no solution. The thing about this is that it will take us 3 to 4 years to build out either of these solutions. So the district has 4 years of time for the future to become more clear to really drive what this solution is. So we may see more growth than we're anticipating, and the district would then be able to say, you know what, we've got to keep these older buildings. We need to keep them in operation, right? Or the district could say, you know what, our growth isn't what we thought it was. We need to think differently about keeping these, okay? So that's what we mean when we refer to a building as being unassigned. Hopefully that makes sense and is clear. All right, so this is where the variables come in. This 5th through preschool grade level. So KECC is the oldest campus in the district, I think 1927, if I remember right. Kings Junior High, built in the 60s. And again, if you remember those operations and maintenance numbers, pretty high on those. So one of the options talks about moving 4th and 5th grade into Kings Junior High. JF Burns, that building is kind of a sprawling building on a very tight site. Anyone get stuck in traffic trying to get around JF Burns? Right. So you all know the reality there. So JF Burns, does it continue to serve as a K3? Would we be better off to maybe convert Columbia into a K3 and create, maybe JF Burns becomes future preschool and district services in the future, right? And then that allows the district to take KEC, that oldest campus, offline. So there's some variability there that we're going to ask you in the survey to kind of speak into, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to take those results back to that community advisory team and say, okay, community advisory team, this is what we heard from all of your neighbors, right? They like the impact of this. They're really worried about this. They're not comfortable with this, right? So we wanted to be able to take that information back to the community advisory team and allow them to evaluate and make some recommendations based upon all of your input. All right. Are we good? Awesome. So if you would, we really want to know what you think. And I would invite you right now. This survey should take 3 minutes. Compared to the last survey, it'll be like a blink. Should take about 3 to 4 minutes. You should be able to scan this with your phone. I think we are also going to be handing out paper versions of this screen, so you can maybe type it in at home if you'd rather do that. Also, I would really encourage you to maybe take an extra one and give it to a neighbor, give it to a friend at where you get coffee. We're really interested in your feedback. Okay. Is anyone able to get to the site right now? Great. Should I just give folks a few minutes to do this before we wrap up? Why don't we do that?
Jeff, there's a question.
Yes, question.
Yeah, look, we can field questions right now for quickly, because we are streaming this and we want to make the time for folks.
Go ahead. What's your question?
Jump in.
I understand the 2 different levels that you're looking at, and bond levies are basically a loan. And they looked at the time frame of how long you want these loans to go for.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. Is what is the time frame the district would ask taxpayers to pay for this?
Mhm.
And right now within Ohio, the legal limit is 37 years, and that is the number that the district would be utilizing as a 37-year pay down.
So from the aspect of 400,000 on 142 million over 37 years, what are you looking at? About over $200 every 100,000.
We actually, Charlie is trying to,
Yeah,
we've actually done a little homework.
yeah, we've done the
on that.
math, and I can share with you. The state is preventing us from putting it on a screen and publishing it, but I can do some calculator math if you want to talk to me after the session. So I've got it down to the degree of what you've asked for.
Yeah.
So right now, this program that we're discussing is done independently here. There have been conversations with the state where some of the monies that would be spent could be applied to future programs with the state. So the state is aware of this, and the design would be to the state standard. And if the state deems it suitable to their program, there can be credits earned.
Mhm.
So let's just say that just simple math, the district spends 100 million. They're eligible for about 27% to being reimbursed by the state. So there's been an initial conversation And those are going to continue on as this process unfolds. So to answer your question, it's ongoing.
Yeah. And to speak to that 27%, that 27% could be used to pay down debt when that 27% comes in. It could be used to address additional future needs. So it's really kind of undefined as far as what that's accounted for. Charlie also mentioned that we have to be careful as far as what we share on screen and streaming. So we are really trying to walk a fine line between just being informational today. And we really don't want to get into campaign. That's not why we're here. We're not about telling you which option is the right thing. So we're really here to hear from you all. Another question?
Yeah.
How long will these improvements last? I mean, we have old buildings, things like that. Are we in for like another 1 in 10 years? Are we trying to figure out the next 25 years?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question for those who are watching on YouTube, how long will these be projected to last? And that's a tricky question because of the enrollment growth. To respond to your answer or to respond to your question, we would obviously address the need now and have some measures built in for the foreseeable future. And so to add, but we don't want to build out too much. So it would be safe to say this solution would be, a 10-year solution. We did not even get growth beyond 10 years, but it would address the problem now and about 7, 8, 9, 10 years into the future. Yes.
Assuming you're going to have to put on another operating levy at some point, once you get all these bigger, newer facilities put on as well.
Yeah, well, we've not discussed operating issues. The treasurer is here to address the current financial outlook for that. If you want to speak with him after. But the thing is newer buildings do run a little more efficient than some older buildings. Energy code today requires us to have much more insulated buildings, much more efficient equipment. And if things do pass, I know any school that we work with strive to have the most efficient operations to reduce that as their footprint does grow.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question here.
It's a very general question, but all of the high school plans involved on a property.
Yeah, good question. So the question is, do all the plans involve the newly acquired property? So if you watch our first forum, you may have learned that the district acquired 32 acres from Kings Island, south of the current fields. And we've explored putting a high school there. And so an expansion would be needed. And so that property would be utilized in some fashion, either parking, schools, or fields. So that it would be a part of any solution on this campus.
I asked because this takes 20 years now. There was a major lead problem.
Yeah, and so the question is there a lead problem on that property? And the answer is the property has been explored before the district bought it. They did soil testing. I've read it myself, and it was deemed to not have any contaminants beyond levels of concern. So, yeah.
Your question about using that parcel or not, just to expand on that, the parcel here is large enough to likely accommodate a building in a couple of different locations. So we don't know if it's in the back or in the front. We aren't that far yet.
It's roughly 100 acres that are combined, which is very nice.
All right.
Okay, we will hang out for additional questions. We're just trying to reduce these just for the sake of the video. But if you would be happy to take the survey now or when you get home to if you want to watch the other forum. But we thank you for coming out today. And as I said, Jeff and I will we'll keep this open till Halloween night. So it's gonna be open for 4 days. We had 582 respondents before. We hope to exceed that. Please share this with your neighbors. The YouTube video will be posted shortly. You can share that. And then ultimately we will be meeting with the CAT team on November 1st to see the results, dissect them, and then ultimately get the recommendation to the board on 11/7. So we thank you for coming out. And we will be hanging out for additional questions.
Stay dry today.
Thanks.